So I want to do a video going over, will Final Fantasy XVI be open world? This is a topic I don't see a lot of conversation on, but it is really hard to tell from the trailers, and I have seen a little bit, not much conversation on it, but just a little. So it's something I've always wondered about, so I just want to kind of make a video spitballing as to if it will be open world. We have the map of Valisthea, and Valisthea seems like a really, really big world, and the concept art of the locations we've seen looks really good. The locations in the trailer look pretty solid. They look really cool to explore. But will it be open world, right? Like, are we talking like Final Fantasy 15? Like Lucis is a seamless open world that you can just go from one end of the map to the other, assuming you don't outrun the loading, which happens a lot. So, will it be that? I'm going to go ahead and spitball off the top of my head and say probably not. I don't think this game is going to be linear, but I don't think this is going to be a seamless open world at all. I'll throw some stuff on screen here to show why. There was a translation of an interview in which Naoki Yoshida said that, you know, it's getting harder to make huge open world games these days, which it is. It's definitely getting harder because it takes a lot of time. You have to build the assets, you have to make it detailed, you have to be able to get it make sure everything's loading quick enough, which on the PS5 that's not much of an issue, but still there's a lot of serious problems that come with trying to do that. And well, I'm not saying Naoki Yoshida doesn't know how to do that. He's untalented with it. It's more along the lines of he hasn't had a ton of experience with seamless open worlds. Now, I haven't played 14 myself, so I don't know if that is completely seamless, but I know that there are big open zones and you go between, which is what this game could do. Very large zones in which you go between. You have the Duchy or Duchy, well, I don't know how you pronounce that. It confused me in The Witcher as well, of Rosaria, and then you have, what was it, the Iron Kingdom, and you have all these different locations in Valisthea. And I have a feeling they will all be explorable in some fashion, and they will probably be pretty detailed, very pretty, really big, you know, big enough to get lost in. But I don't think it's going to be seamless. It's like, okay, I'm going to start here, and Rosaria is the one on the left. I'm going to start in Rosaria. I'm going to go to the edge of the continent, take a boat, get to the other side, go all the way to the other end, where I think the Iron Kingdom is. I think is what it is. And I don't know a ton about Valisthea because we don't have a ton of information. So I don't think it's going to be that. If I had to guess what I would compare it to, or what it is, I would put my money on some combination of Final Fantasy XIV and The Witcher 3. This is what I would say, because The Witcher 3 has several very large open world areas. You have White Orchard, you have Velen, or No Man's Land, you have Toussaint, and you have the Skellige Islands, which I still haven't beaten The Witcher 3. Okay, I'm waiting for the next gen update to really do it. I'm at Skellige right now, okay, but the point is you have all these pretty big areas, and but it's not seamless, right? Like, you can't go, and I'm pausing a lot, but it's because I have something on my phone right here that I'm reading off of too. You have White Orchard, and White Orchard's pretty big, but to get to Velen, you have to take a signpost and then go through a load screen to get there. And to get from Velen to Skellige, you can, like, take a boat and get there. I don't know if that's just for the cutscene or if that is, like, a way you can always get to Skellige. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's just for the cutscene. I'm pretty sure you can't just sail out to Skellige and then have a loading screen in between. Which, you could do that. You have to sail through an ocean because this is a way that Lightning Returns managed to sidestep loading in some places. At the end of that game, you can open up the bridges that connect all the lands, and they're very huge bridges. Don't get me wrong, it sucks having to run through those things, but but they put some really tough enemies up there and like actual fun fights. And it's how the game cleverly sidesteps having to load assets and such. It's just the way they went about it, and I thought it was pretty smart. And this game, I imagine, if you can go between all the continents, it will do something very similar. There will be a big long stretch where you literally can't see anything, maybe ocean, for miles, and that'll be the time when it's loading, which again, on the PS5, loading isn't as much of an issue, but it does still take time to optimize for that, right? And by the time it comes out, Final Fantasy 16 will have had 6 full years of development. So, while I definitely do think it would be possible to do that, I don't think it would be a full, seamless open world. Again, it's PS5, it's totally possible. The SSD makes things very, very possible. I mean, in Spider-Man Miles Morales, you can literally go into a base, the entire city despawns, go back out of the vent when you leave the base, and the entire city spawns back in half a second, right? It loads very quickly. Which is something that a lot of the first party or exclusive PlayStation games are going to take advantage of. But the fact that 16 isn't first party, it's exclusive, but it's not first party. It's definitely going to come to PC at some point. Xbox, don't hold your breath. It's going to be a 7 remake situation again. But I definitely do think it will be possible, but I don't see them doing it. This isn't laziness on the development team's part. This is a matter of, well, we can't completely optimize it and do that on PS5, and then completely change it when we put it on PC. So they just went with the option of one or the other, right? Which I think is maybe for the best, you know. You don't want one version to be screwed over because another one came first, right? That's not fair. So, I definitely do think that this game is not going to be a completely seamless Red Dead Redemption 2 style open world. There are going to be huge areas in which you go between through a loading screen or some method of travel, and then it'll cut to loading, you'll pop back in, and you can explore similar to The Witcher 3. And the zones, as for how big they'll be, it's hard to say. I don't think they'll be as big as The Witcher 3. It's possible, but I don't think they will be. I would say it's most likely to be about the size of... what's the way to put it? I would say each zone will probably be about the size of the Duscae region in Final Fantasy 15. From the entrance to Duscae all the way to just before the Lestalin blockade. That's probably about the size I would want to go for some of these zones. Now, I don't think there will be a ton of them. If they are that size, there will be maybe 4 or 5 of those big zones, one for each continent, one for each nation. I believe there's 6 nations, so one for each of those, and some will be smaller because one of them is an island nation, right? So I would definitely love to see this be a full seamless open world where I can get lost in it for hours at a time, because that's what I did with Final Fantasy 15 and even Lightning Returns. I got lost in those games' worlds for a very, very long time. And Lightning Returns is probably the best example of how they'll probably handle 16. Although I think the areas will be a bit bigger in Lightning Returns, because the wildlands and dead dunes are kind of small in that, and you can memorize them to where you know them in the back of your hand very quickly. You can do that with 15 too, but not quite to that same extent. So, 16 I think is almost certainly not going to be a full open world game. Semi-open world, but not quite semi-open world in the same vein as Sekiro. If they make it Sekiro style, I'm going to be pissed. I'm not going to be happy. And if they make it linear, like 7 Remake, or God forbid, if it's like Devil May Cry in terms of its levels, like it's completely level oriented and linear, I'm going to be very, very upset. I'm going to get heated at that. As much as I want Final Fantasy 16, if it is like super linear like 7 Remake, I'm going to be very upset. But I know for a fact that it won't be quite like that. So I'm going to read something off, which is a translation from an interview from around the Tokyo Game Show. When Naoki Yoshida was talking to, what was the guy's name, like Hiroshi Sakai or something like that. This is the interview. This is coming from Naoki Yoshida. I'll put it on screen. And then there is the problem of scale. If you're going to depict the world in a 1-for-1 scale, there needs to be a little room for exaggeration, which in turn makes it impossible to show epic tales where the hero travels across several continents to save the world. And it's, yeah, but the story itself needs to be greater than match the graphics, which also makes the story shrink in scale. And Naoki Yoshida says exactly, but we know Final Fantasy fans aren't playing the game to see some small little dispute over some unknown little region in some little country. So they're going to make shrewd decisions. Okay, I'm cutting ahead instead of reading straight through. Sorry, I do that a lot. It's becoming more and more difficult to create an adventure spanning across worlds in a video game. We're going to make true decisions and get rid of what is unnecessary, otherwise chances are that it'll take too long to release, or worst case scenario, won't be completed at all. Now, as he said there, they're not going to lock this to being linear, right? This is not going to be a linear game. As he said himself, FF fans want a world to explore. It's what they want. Especially what I want. It's what I love most about 15. And while the world felt empty a lot of the time, the sights you could see in the world were still something that captivated me. It's still something that does captivate me. Over 5 years later, it still does captivate me, right? And Lightning Returns managed to do the same thing. So I'm definitely thinking it's going to be decently big, but it's not going to be like huge, right? You're not going to get some massive sprawling open world. You're just straight up not. The best comparison, I just thought of it, would be each zone would probably be comparable in some ways to Grand Pulse in Final Fantasy 13. When you get there in Chapter 11 and you have all of Grand Pulse at your disposal, it'll probably be like that, but not quite like, okay, Grand Pulse is a huge open area, but it has these little areas that go through the trees. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to explore through woods and forests and grasslands and plains and rock formations, all that stuff. Think of some combination of Grand Pulse and 15's world. And it'll probably have go-betweens similar to The Witcher. That's the best way to put it. Think of it kind of like some kind of a really good combination between FF13's Grand Pulse, 15's Lucis, Lightning Returns' Wildlands and Dead Dunes. Or just Lightning Returns' design anyways, which I really like Lightning Returns, that's just me. Think of it as some combination of those three with the go-betweens of The Witcher. That's probably the way I would imagine this game's world would be. I'd be happy with that completely as long as they give me something to explore. I'd be very happy. It doesn't need to be like Crimson Desert or anything where everything seems massive and visually stunning in every single way. I don't need it to be like Crimson Desert, right? Another game I'm very much looking forward to. I don't need my Final Fantasies to be that big. I just need to be able to love them a lot. Which, you know, I'm probably going to love it a lot anyways, unless it's DMC level based, which again, judging by what Yoshida has said himself, I don't see that happening, but that's pretty much everything. I just wanted to talk about, is this game open world? Could it be linear? Could it be semi-open world? Could they go the way of Sekiro? And the answer is, if it goes Sekiro, or 7 Remake, Devil May Cry, I'm going to be heated. But yeah, that'll do. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's open world? Do you think it's linear? Do you think that they'll split the difference somehow? Do you think my comparison of making it be some kind of a combination between 13's Grand Pulse, Lightning Returns is open world, semi-open world, and 15's EOS with the go-betweens of The Witcher would be a fair comparison? I think that's probably the best way to go about it. If you don't want to make it seamless, go for something like that. But yeah, that'll do. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. My name is Carmen, but I go by Ellis on YouTube, and that'll do it. Y'all take it easy.